Good morning, everybody. Anime Infection here, and today we're going to talk about gaming, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and everything in between. Let's get into it. Before we get into the gaming aspect of things, I want to let everyone know this is my personal opinion. This is how I view things. It doesn't mean it's necessarily correct. It doesn't mean that this is the be-all, end-all situation. This is just how I view things. So, without further ado, let's talk about gaming. So, within the last, I would say, couple of years, I've noticed a really large difference in the gaming world. I've noticed that there are a couple of different aspects to what we know today as considered gaming. From everything from mobile phones to console players to all the way to PC. And the one thing I noticed that really hasn't changed is that, there could be a lot of advocates that PC is better than console, console's better than PC. Mobile games are now getting to the point where mobile games are joining the war against everything else in between. But in my honest aspect of the gaming world, the way I view things is that I look at a game like Final Fantasy. And the reason I bring Final Fantasy up is because I am a very huge advocate of Final Fantasy. They are not paying me to say this. Square Enix has not given me any money. This is just my personal opinion. I have loved Final Fantasy since 1987. I love the gameplay. I love the story. The turn-based system. Even when the turn-based system switched over to more like an adventure, it was still a lot of fun. And a lot of people who are necessarily older gamers sometimes have a hard way of coping with the new way gameplay, like something like Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 11, 14. There's gaming has changed tremendously over the last 30 plus years. And I think sometimes we forget ourselves of where we originally came from. And so we have a tendency to be bitter when we find out about things. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not all for the pay to win. I don't really condone the whole gotcha system for mobile games. And I definitely don't condone, any way to easily make a buck on pre-orders or any games that are really a pay-to-win system. For an example, I will give you one of my games that I truly enjoy, and then I'll give you a game that I've seen from an outside view, and it's just my opinion. So the first game I'm going to bring up is Final Fantasy XIV. Now, for a larger majority of people, there's a lot of people who play Final Fantasy XIV. For those who don't, it is a MMORPG, which stands for multiplayer online role-playing game. And what you're basically doing is you decide to pick a character, depending on the race that you play, and then you can play as a certain class. Anything from a warrior all the way up to a caster to a healer. It just really depends on your preference on the style you like to play. In a game like that, their caveat as far as what you would consider paying money for would be mostly glamours, which are basically like costumes for your character, or anything from vehicles, which would be like mounts that you would ride or use in the game if you didn't join that event on that particular holiday during that particular year. Now, with a game like that, those are caveats that you don't need to really pay. You don't really need to really pay for those in order to enjoy the game. That is just something extra. That is something, if you decide to do it, that is on you. You can't really get mad at the developer. You can't get really mad at the company who came up with that idea. That is just something on them. And it's on the player to realize that you're spending money because you enjoy the game. You're not spending money because, this is going to give me an advantage. Now, on the other hand, I look at a game which I used to play, and unfortunately I don't play it anymore simply because I feel outclassed. For the lack of a better word, I don't have the skill nor the talent anymore that I used to, just because I felt like it was a lot more simpler back when I used to play. So we're gonna talk about another game called Mortal Kombat. Now, over the years, Mortal Kombat has built an incredible legacy. Everything from Mortal Kombat 1 all the way up to the current era of the Mortal Kombat 11, and now they're planning on releasing a kind of like a remake of Mortal Kombat 1, but in a brand new era where the Fire God Liu Kang is reign supreme. Now, in my personal aspect, the Mortal Kombat's kind of moving forward. There was, I liked it when you were able to do the moves and do the abilities and this and that, and it was fun because you and your friend were trying to do special moves and everything else, and I thought that was really, really cool. And the fatalities, babalities, animalities, everything that they had, it was a really wild game, and I still think the game is absolutely breathtaking with all the things that you have a capability of doing. However, the combat system to me has more or less been something of a challenge for me in my aspect, simply because the game is no longer about the abilities or the or how you play with those abilities or use them. It's more of, well, you're going to do this one ability and then you're going to do some combos to get this guy all the way to one point or this girl all the way to one point, and then you end up defeating them, and then you do the fatality. And to me, when you're a novice or someone who just wants to play for fun, it kind of makes it really, really hard to enjoy a game when that person is just beating you to the ground to the point to where you don't even have a capability of doing it. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't have a defense system. They have defense systems built in, but when you're kind of in a rush or you're in a panic, you're kind of not really thinking of what to do next. And you see these players play at these esports games, and you noticed that when they play, they break out of the combo and they do a combo of their own, and it's everything. To me, that's really, really overwhelming. I'm not saying fighting games are for everybody today. They're most certainly not. Although, I look at a game like Tekken, or I look at Soul Calibur. I've played those games offline. I haven't really played them too much online, but when I seem to play offline or I play a little bit online, it doesn't seem like the combo system on those games are nearly as excessive as like things like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. And like I said, I don't have anything against Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. I think those games look absolutely beautiful. I think those games are really, really cool. Would I love to play with other players? Absolutely. But the problem is, when you go online and you just want to play just to play, it seems a majority of the time, at least in my opinion, I would like to make that very, very clear, this is my opinion, is mostly advanced players who do these combos. It's not worth their time and this and that. And then if you're one of those players who only know a few moves, then they consider you a cheater, or they think, oh, well, you shouldn't be playing this game, you should play offline. There's a lot of negativity, and unfortunately that's a massive turnoff for a lot of people. Now, at this time, you could be saying, oh, well, Anime Infection, you're comparing apples to oranges. Final Fantasy RPGs or Final Fantasy in general and Mortal Kombat, those are two completely different games altogether. You're absolutely right. They are completely two different games. But where I was really going with this is that these are how I feel about how the gaming world works. I would love to go back and enjoy those fighting games, but I know practicality-wise that I would not be able to get to enjoy them the way I used to enjoy them back when they were on like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, even like Nintendo 64, PlayStation 2. Back then, the system wasn't so bad, and it was a matter of if you knew the moves, you knew the abilities, it was kind of fun. But now it just feels like it's more of a competition and a way to just, you know, grind someone into the ground than to actually enjoy it. Now, that doesn't mean that like online MMORPGs don't have their challenges too. And of course, you know, it's all about fan base, how much content there is to play, and everything else. With Final Fantasy XIV, and once again, you know, I'm an advocate of Final Fantasy in general, and that's because I've been playing it since 1987. Final Fantasy for me is, the reason I joined 14 so much is because everything before 14, I noticed small enemies that I'm facing, enemies that I faced back in Final Fantasy 1, enemies that I faced in Final Fantasy 6, 5, 3, you know, the whole game is absolutely amazing, and I think it's a really, really good game, and I think sometimes we forget ourselves of where we originally came from. Now, changing subjects, and the next thing I really want to kind of talk about a little bit, and the only reason I'm talking about it is because I was on YouTube just a few hours ago. I was watching a video on GameSpot about pre-orders, and for the most part, I will link that description below my video. For the most part, I agree with them. You know, pre-orders to me seem like they have kind of gone downhill quite extensively. At this point, they're trying to get your bang for your buck. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I don't do pre-orders. I absolutely do, if I can afford them. For a great example, I did try to pre-order Final Fantasy 16. Unfortunately, my budget was not there. I wanted to get the collector's edition simply because that's how much of a fan I am. I have, anytime they had a collector's edition for Final Fantasy games, I was pretty much on board. The Final Fantasy 16 collector's edition looked absolutely amazing. And, of course, you know, that was going to be like $420 out of my pocket. At that given time, I thought I was going to have the money saved. Unfortunately, I did not. I had to cancel my pre-order. So I'm probably going to end up being one of those many people that are going to have to wait and see if like either eBay or Amazon has the collector's edition on sale, or even if the Square Enix store has it on sale. Another thing that, since we are talking about pre-orders, is I also look at pre-orders from another side. Once again, this is also about Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Now, for many of us, you know, the Pixel Remaster showed up on mobile phones. Now, I've thought about it a little bit about getting the Pixel Remaster on my mobile phone and just buying each of the games, which I don't know if I would technically be satisfied with that. When I found out it was coming to PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch, along with Xbox, I was very, very excited. I said, you know what? This sounds great. You know, I wasn't really intent on getting the collector's edition for that one, simply because it didn't seem like there was anything there that seemed like it was worth me getting. So instead, I wanted to just get the regular Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster game, physical game, just because I wanted to have a physical copy of it. And I'll get into that later into this video. But the moment I went to go pre-order that game, granted that game was about $80, but unfortunately, the next morning, I went to check and it was completely sold out, which was absolutely insane. But at the same time, it also goes to show you how many fans there are of Final Fantasy. The thing I don't like about it is that I have gone on to eBay and I have extensively noticed that there's a lot of scalpers who are trying to sell Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster for $300, $400, $500, which is absolutely insanity. Nobody should have to spend that kind of money on just the game itself. Granted, the game is more than likely worth it, but it's not worth spending or giving these scalpers $300, $400, $500 of your money. If that money was going to go back to Square Enix to support them or to do something with them, you know what? I'm all for it. But I do think a lot of the times, when special collector's editions come out, I do believe that the scalper situation, especially when it comes to pre-orders, have gotten completely out of control. this is once again just something that I feel that people don't seem to understand, and they think, oh, well, I'm willing to pay that money. And honestly, you really shouldn't. It would be one thing if somebody was going to sell their collector's edition because, they fell out of no longer wanting to be a gamer, or they fell no reason to play it, or they have kids now and they just don't have any interest to spend time playing games. And that's perfectly fine. You want to go sell your games? Go for it. That's on you. That's something you want to do. But in my honest opinion, I think certain pre-orders make sense, other pre-orders don't. Another pre-order that I bought the collector's edition for was the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I will say this. I did spend the money on that. I did get the collector's edition. However, the only thing that kind of bothered me a slight bit, and I will say I am guilty. I did spend the money on candy bars to get items for Final Fantasy VII's remake game. So, in that particular situation, was that a pay to win? Not exactly, but the thing was, it was an item that you got back in the old Final Fantasy. I thought it was kind of cool, but once again, we're getting to a point where companies, vendors, and everything else, they're you see it on Monsters, you see it on energy drinks, you see it at fast foods, you see it on candy bars. These companies, these manufacturers are now getting other companies involved in any way to make extra money to, sell these particular items in regards to their game and what you can get in the game itself. Do I think it's okay? No, not really. I think it kind of sucks that, you spent all that money and they want you to spend more money. One game that I can considerably say that I had a bit of a thing was on PlayStation 3. There was a game that was released called Little Big Planet. In that game, you didn't necessarily need to buy the costumes or anything else that they were selling within the PlayStation 3 store. It was more for if you wanted your character to look like one of the other characters from another game, which to me was kind of cool and everything else. Although that's another game that it was choice. That is your choice. You don't have to spend the money. You could play the game for what it was, or you could buy the costumes. It was entirely up to you. Now, honestly, like I've said, gaming in general has made some large changes. I have seen games where originally they started at $50 and now they are almost sitting at close to $70. Do I think the $70 price is reasonable? It's hard to say, really. I'm not one of those advocates who will say, every AAA game that comes out in the world is worth $70. But then again, I'm not also one of those people that oh, this game is poor, oh, this game has glitches, and now it's not worth the money. I played a game called Anthem, and honestly, a lot of people tore Anthem apart on social media. Really horrible game, a lot of glitches, a lot of problems. Did they have all that? Yes, it most certainly did. But did I enjoy it? Yes, I did. But then on the other side of that coin, I look at a game like Destiny. And when Destiny originally came out, my gamer buddies bought me the collector's edition digitally, and I played that, and I enjoyed that, and I did spend the money on the expansion packs. What I did not spend was, I did not buy the Rise of Iron pack, which was $30, only because at the time I was in college, and they particularly told me that one of my classmates said, "Oh, well, I finished Rise of Iron in less than a week." And I was just stunned. And I was like, "What do you mean you finished it in less than a week?" He's like, "Oh, well, I did all the content and everything else. I finished it in less than a week." So I said, you know what? I'm not spending $30 if I'm going to end up clearing the game in less than a week. To me, that's absolutely insanity. When Destiny 2 came out, it felt like microtransactions got a little out of hand. It seemed like it was a lot worse. It got a lot worse. They microtransaction the crap out of it. And at that point, I lost complete and total interest. Not only did I never buy the game, while I understand, you could buy the basic Destiny 2, for nothing. It's free, but you still gotta, spend the money on the expansions and everything else. I don't see the value in it. I'm not saying the game is bad, but for, at least in my opinion, I don't particularly see the value. Now, I do know of a lot of people who are PC players, and whether you're PC, whether you're console, whether you're mobile, there's always going to be some kind of situation where you're going to end up spending money on either an add-on, or you think this fashion looks really cool and you're going to spend money on that, or this and that. The point I'm getting through all this is that you as a player, you as the individual, should have to make a decision on your own on whether you should do this or not. I'm not saying that you should be condemned because you did spend the money. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. All I'm saying is you have to really, really be careful with what you decide to spend your money on. For me, I think paying for a subscription for Final Fantasy XIV is worth it. I have not spent money all the time buying, all the extra stuff that they have in the Square Enix store. I am a little discouraged that the Pixel Remaster is sold out. It is still sold out. I recently just checked, so I'm really kind of discouraged because I really wanted a physical copy. I've always liked physical copies. I will get into that in another video at another time, but that's the way I view things. As far as my history with gaming, I will say this: I have been playing since Atari, and I have seen the gaming world make leaps and bounds, and it's absolutely amazing what we have done over the years, and it's absolutely incredible. I cannot believe how far we have come over the years, and honestly, it's cool. It really is. Currently, I'm playing Warframe. I play it on my PS5. I was playing it on my PS4. I'm really thoroughly enjoying that. I've kind of taken a break from Final Fantasy XIV, not because of disliking it. I felt like I was playing it so much that I got burnt out. For those who play a lot of MMOs and online games, you get to a point where you're playing it so much, at some point you get completely burnt out. So, once again, these are my thoughts, these are my opinions. You can like them, you can dislike them, that's completely up to you. I just wanted to put my thoughts out there. I figured that I would share how I felt about everything that was going on. I know I only mentioned quite a few games, mostly when it came to consoles. I haven't really mentioned anything mobile-wise, but if this video appeals to you, you find this interesting, you find like you want to know more about my opinion on how the gaming world works, I would love to post most videos. You are more than likely, you can more than comment on this video and tell me what your thoughts are. Anyway, this is Anime Infection. I want to thank you for watching this entire video, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.